Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Ben, Meredith, Alonzo. David Bowie died last night, Sunday, 2 days after his 69th birthday, 2 days after the release of his 25th and final album. Whether you were a significant fan or a moderate fan or just knew who he was, it is a major death, and it is sort of, you feel it throughout the day. We were falling asleep last night at nearly 11 o'clock, and it was like my wife found it, and she was like, "Oh my God!" Yeah. You know, there've been a lot of people who've died this year already.
Lemmy and Angus Scrim already.
Yeah, and Natalie Cole, and like these are significant, and Haskell Wexler. I mean, Haskell Wexler.
Vilmos Zsigmond, yeah.
Right, yeah, they've been right. So tough year for cinematographers. But this is this is huge.
And I think with Bowie also, I mean, I'm not nearly qualified to eulogize him as a musician, but I think his film presence has been so powerful. And there are so many people who try to bridge being pop stars and movie stars and don't quite pull it off. And I think that Bowie was very successful in that regard, and I think knew what he was working with,
and even not having any formal acting training, just with his stage presence and creating these characters from Ziggy Stardust to, Aladdin Sane,
right.
Aladdin and Zane,
kimonos and spacesuits and different,
everything. Just he brought such an amazing character to everything he did, and it translated so well from stage to screen.
Yeah, I think he understood his physicality. So he could play an alien in The Man Who Fell to Earth, or a vampire in The Hunger, or the Goblin King in Labyrinth, and he just 50% of it was just showing up and being David Bowie and just having that look to him. But then for a lot of pop singers, the 50% is all you get. And then on top of that, I think he really kind of was really engaging as a screen presence. And, and while you would expect him to do those kind of bizarre roles, then he turns around and, he's Pontius Pilate in The Last Temptation of Christ. He's in, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, or Absolute Beginners, or The Linguini Incident, and, which are recognizable human beings, and also making those guys really interesting too.
Yeah, I think that every singer who has stage presence, it should never come as a surprise if they can act. And then maybe they won't have great range, maybe they're not going to win an Oscar, but even that doesn't surprise me, because the ones who really give it a show and put on a show, that is a big part, maybe the biggest part of performing as an actor. And this guy put on, as you said, Meredith, this guy put on a show consistently. And I mean, again, not just with different characters, but becoming a different character. And the fashion sense, and not just a fashion sense, a fashion trendsetter, making fashion, leading the way, paving the way in fashion.
But you could put him in a movie like Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, where he's in uniform and he's you totally buy him as a British soldier.
Oh no, I don't think he has to play somebody. I'm saying I'm not surprised. Like, I suspect that if he'd committed to acting, he could have. He could have done well on the stage. He could have.
He was the Elephant Man.
That's right. That's right. So he could play almost anything. This guy was a performer, and I think we when we talk about acting, we forget how much of acting often is just your ability to sell it, and there's no question.
Presence.
Presence, and David Bowie had presence and the ability to sell whatever character he was playing.
And it's amazing in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, just how much David Bowie was able to just become somewhat normal. You think about him in all these like highly colorful, outrageous outfits, but he was just a man in uniform, a little homoerotic and hyper,
a little bit.
But it's just a testament to just if he really commits himself to that role.
Nothing you have seen or heard about David Bowie will prepare you for the impact of his first dramatic performance in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Going back to his debut, Man Who Fell to Earth, I mean, in many ways, that was David Bowie as David Bowie. He himself in that time was dealing a lot with feeling very estranged, very much an outsider, going through, the real depth of drug abuse right then. And
he put the alien in Alienation.
Yeah, he really did. I think I read an interview a couple of years ago on that film, and I think he was doing like 10 grams of coke a day. It was quite a bit.
Is that a lot?
Yeah, so they tell me. I don't know. But it was quite a bit, and so for his performance in that role, it was very much him, and you see him throughout the years. I mean, even down to just his appearance in Zoolander. I mean, as himself.
I believe I might be of service.
He
extras.
really, yeah. His commitment to his roles really, I think, just speaks very.
And
deeply.
it's interesting when you see, like, when Tilda Swinton has sort of done kind of a Bowie-like persona. They both occupy that really interesting area of androgyny where they can be beautiful in either end of the spectrum. I mean, somebody tweeted last night, "Can we please make the David Bowie biopic while Tilda Swinton is young enough to play him?" I think they really sort of occupy a similar space in terms of knowing what they bring to the camera and being able to sort of, share that with, to kind of transmit that sense of sexuality and gender and glamour and all that stuff.
And to get the thing that that Rupert Everett talked about, when he came out, and then later, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alonso, maybe you know this, but he basically said he regretted that because it hurt his career. And David Bowie did it. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't being cast as leading man. It's different in music, no question. But if I'm remembering it correctly, or remembering what I read correctly, that he regretted talking about being bisexual because whereas now you could hopefully get away with it easier, it became defining of him. He ever did, Howard Stern does these incredible interviews with stars, but he didn't ever sit down with Bowie, and Stern always wanted him because Bowie always thought, I don't want to talk about being in bed with Mick Jagger, which is all. And so at a time when saying that caused people to, whereas now we look back and his explanation of it, he's like, I'm English. I was young. I lived in an art world where we experimented with things, and so I experimented. And who cares what it meant?
But what I think what Bowie made a huge difference, though, is being the kind of public face of this next wave of gender expression and sexuality, where it didn't matter, and it wasn't necessarily a defining thing whether or not people sort of took it that way, but it was just all part of this whole essence that he brought to things, and he is one of the first people to sort of turn sexuality into a piece of the puzzle and not the whole puzzle.
I'm sorry that he didn't get to hear you say that. I hope people said that to him because I was bothered by the fact that plagued him. Because if he did it now, he would instantly be seen as probably a more legitimate, more a better have more props than Caitlyn Jenner, because he's on a reality show. Say whatever you like about her, there's a degree of selling in everything a Kardashian does, right? And Bowie was just there was an honesty to him that I'm sorry, but he was a little early to get the credit for that honesty.
For me, that's part of what's weird about him dying, is that he seemed not human in a lot of ways. He transcended gender. He transcended so much stuff that I thought one day like the aliens were going to come and bring him home. I did that. He's just dead of cancer. Seems so mundane.
So disappointingly human. I'm so glad that at your Christmas Eve shindig at your home, which is lovely, you were playing the Christmas special.
Oh, right.
With
Bing Crosby.
And all I saw was, I didn't see anything except bumming from Bing Crosby and David Bowie. It was pretty great. So anyway, it's, and the last thing, none of us are music critics, but I was listening to Howard today, and I mentioned this to you guys outside, so bear with me, but it is an easy criticism and an unfair criticism of actors, to say they always play the same role. Musicians, their songs also. I mean, Cary Grant played the same role, but you don't say it about Cary Grant because he was great at it. It was a great role. And with musicians, that means they frequently have a style that if you recognize their songs, that's probably good, right? But man, he played the first 10 seconds of 20 David Bowie songs, and that doesn't sound anything like the one before it. I mean, this is a guy who kept pushing, kept changing, kept trying, kept being on. I don't think he ever thought about the cutting edge because I think he created it.
Yeah.
If you guys would each wanted to recommend one David Bowie movie to people, what would you pick?
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know him nearly as well as you guys.
I mean, it's such a small role he plays, but The Prestige, because him as Nikolai Tesla is quite possibly fantastic. And then following that, I love The Hunger. I'm a goth kid. Let's be honest. I had to watch that.
I would. I'll cop out a little bit, but I'd watch him on Extras. I mean, it was
The fucking
It
hilarious.
was
Yeah.
really, really, really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to keep your integrity when you're going for that first
Little fat man who sold his soul.
the little.
Little fat man who sold his dream.
I'm going to go with Absolute Beginners, which is not a perfect movie, and he doesn't have a giant role in it, but it is this sort of tribute to, it's a 1986 film that's about the teenage explosion in the 1950s, but it's also kind of an homage to the musicals of the 1950s. And Bowie gets this one huge number called That's Motivation, where he like dances on a giant typewriter, and it's, you know, it's very kind of Gene Kelly stuff. And he is great in it. Like it's not winking, it's not ironic. He's just doing it. He is tap dancing. He is, you know, like on a spinning globe and all this stuff. And it's just, it's a joy to watch.
That's a movie that, 86 you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right, because I remember, I think, seeing it in college. I can't be sure of where I saw it, but my hunch is I saw it in Boston. I say that so maybe you'll think I went to Harvard. And I hated it, right? But me at 19 hating a movie, it's meaningless. In fact, it probably speaks well of the movie that I didn't like it at 19. So I should check out Absolute Beginners again.
And, no, sorry. go ahead.
Well, no, and I was just going to say, too, in Basquiat, his portrayal
Yes.
of Andy Warhol
Yes.
is phenomenal. And him and Andy were friends, and it's really great to see that.
How could they not?
Yeah.
I would love, and maybe it's on YouTube somewhere. I would love to see like a mega mix of all the people playing Andy Warhol,
I know.
like Crispin Glover in, you know, in The Doors, and Guy Pearce and whoever else. Like, I think that would be fun.
So
to watch.
his manager, who's well, not his manager, but there's already a tribute concert scheduled for March 21st at Carnegie Hall, which means you were planning this before.
Yeah.
When Roots and Cyndi Lauper have already committed, and but yeah, so this has been.
Well, I was going to say, for anyone who's been listening to Blackstar, the new album, Lazarus, the song definitely has a lot more meaning now. And
Yeah.
I found out today that he actually had been planning that as his farewell song.
Look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen.
So going back and re-listening to it this morning once the news broke. And I was
It's like listening to Warren Zevon's
Yeah.
last album, where it's just like all
Right,
the
was
more
it-
Yeah.
crushing when you know that they knew
Yeah.
that this was going to be their last record. One last thing I want to throw out real quick. Bowie's last credited screen appearance is in a comedy that I really like called Band Slam. You
love Band Slam.
Yeah, it was a really charming movie. It was Todd Graff's follow-up to Camp. And if you've seen Camp, Bowie kind of fills the Stephen Sondheim role in that he's sort of the role model. The lead character in the film spends the movie writing emails to David Bowie about trying to become a rock manager, and then Bowie has this great cameo at the end. And it's streaming on Netflix. It's worth
All right.
worth it.
It's worth checking out.
So
All right, guys.
yeah,
thanks.
we come this way but once.